Okay, how's it going? My name's Michael John Weber, and this is How to Avoid Writer's Block and Finish Your Friggin' Novel by me, of course. I did a bunch of these, or a few of these, a while ago, and then I did a few more that I didn't publish because, quite honestly, I got too busy writing a novel that I forgot all about them. So anyway, I'm going to take a stab at it again, and I'm going to try to make it quick. For some reason, I tend to ramble on a lot when I do these videos. It's probably because I'm a writer. But anyway, so I don't have it written on the screen, but it's only a 4-step process, so it shouldn't be hard to friggin' remember. Or just go watch the previous few videos and whatever. But step 1, you write dialogue first. I'm just going to jump into it because I know I'm going to just ramble forever. Let's go to page 10. 10 sounds like a good number. 10. Oh, we're going too far. And here I'm wasting time. Ugh, Michael, you're ridiculous. Okay, so here, example of how I write. You write dialogue first. So, here's this scene, this chapter. I'm not sure what chapter it is. It's just a scene for now. And here you can see this is just pure dialogue. And it goes on for pages. And then here's another scene with other characters and their dialogue, etc., etc. And you can see I just put the first letter of the name of the character, put a colon, and then I write the dialogue, and then I go to the next line and write the dialogue, and I do that until I would say about 80% of the dialogue is done. You can't actually do all of the dialogue that way, but in a few weeks, at least for me, you can do about 100 to 150 pages of dialogue. Obviously, it's going to depend on you, your free time, and the story you're writing. But once you have that 100, 150 pages of dialogue done, then you go back and you do step 2. And step 2 is what I call wrylies. It's a thing from the movie business because that's just what it is. And what that is, obviously, is all the he said, she asks, he wonders aloud, and all those little, I don't even know what they're called, I just call them wrylies, but you add those to your dialogue, and then that also includes sort of the micro physical movements that a character will do while they're delivering their dialogue. And as you can see here, I did that. The character named A will let out a sigh and take a seat either before or during delivering this bit of dialogue. And then I also, as I explained in a previous video, I believe, I have sort of a shorthand code for characters. So for example, if a character shakes her head or his head, I put that in. Maybe they roll his or her eyes, or they avoid contact, or they blush, which I just write the word blush, right? And I just leave those little codes in for step 2. And when step 2 comes around, then I go fill them in and fill them out. And I add the wrylies to each of the lines of dialogue. Here I can show you maybe an example. No. Oh yeah, here's an example of wryly already added, though I might not keep them. So here's the line of dialogue is, oops, sorry, here we go. Wow, I'm having a hard time. Here's the line of dialogue I wrote in step 1, and then I came back at step 2 and added that. And then you just, so step 2, you go to each line of dialogue and just you give it the wrylies it needs. Then finally, step 3 would be the descriptive paragraphs, the ones especially that establish and re-establish scene. So if, and I'm going to get to it right here, this is actually pulled from a previous novel, so it's already completed in this 3-step program. But here would be your establishing paragraph. Writing this here is what I leave last. It's probably the last month of not writing a novel is writing these establishing paragraphs, and then during a scene, if the characters move elsewhere to a new scene, you have to re-establish the scenery, right? So you would write another one halfway through the chapter, what have you. But this step here, writing, and this is not even this is only, 2 sentences long. Some of the opening paragraphs or establishing paragraphs are short like this one. Some of them are a few paragraphs long. It depends obviously on where you are in your story and blah, 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 right? But that comes last really because, again, my idea is that being human, we're more accustomed to dialogue than to paying attention to and describing scenery. When you sit at coffee, you're not in words describing the coffee house you're sitting in. You take one look at it and you're done. And then you focus on your friend with whom you're drinking coffee and you're just delivering dialogue. So dialogue is the easiest thing. So my theory is you do that first. And then writing the wrylies is relatively easy because they're pretty short and they're just like visual helpers so that you can see what characters are doing and you can hear how they deliver their dialogue. So those are relatively short. Like I said, I said there's only about 30 to 50 pages of wrylies in a whole novel because it's just he said, or she muttered, or he sniffs a laugh and replies, that sort of thing. They're really short. But then the hard part where you need to be a writer, you need your descriptive skills, you need your thesaurus, is these big powerhouse paragraphs at the beginning of a scene that establish what's going on, or the ones later on that reestablish changes in scenery. Though I found those ones are usually shorter, but that's just me. Okay, so there is basically my example of my work of how I apply this theory. Again, what am I on? Page 97. I've been working on this one for, I don't know, a couple weeks now, maybe 3. I've been playing video games too, so that's been stealing some of my time, but anyway, but yeah. So you write dialogue first, wryly second, and then those big powerhouse paragraphs last. And then in my theory of how to avoid writer's block, step B, if you will, is don't write in a straight line. So what you've been seeing here on the screen, none of these chapters are actually in order of where they should be. In fact, they don't even have chapter numbers or names because I don't know. In my opinion, figuring out where all these pieces go, all these scenes go, is for editing. And again, because I'm blending the theory of screenwriting and novel writing in one go as I initially saw it, it makes sense that I would mention editing movies or editing in this way because that's kind of how editing movies works as far as I understand it. They'll go film 5 scenes that take place at one location, though those scenes may not occur chronologically speaking. In the editing room at the end, they cut apart all of these pieces and then they fit them together like a puzzle where they should be so as to make the flow of the narrative and the story. So that's essentially what I'm doing here. I write all the chapters out of order. I don't care if it's chapter 1 or chapter 30 or chapter 200. I don't care where it falls. I just write it. And then later on, once the writing is done, I cut and paste these things off the page and put them where the hell they belong because that seems to be an editing phase. So now partly this will help you finish books because taking this Herculean task of writing 100,000 words and writing them all perfectly in a straight line beginning to end is so big a task that it makes sense more to me that you would break it up into all these tiny pieces, these tiny steps. And one of the reasons being is that if you're annoyed with writing dialogue today, you can go write wrylies. Or if you're annoyed about writing about 2 characters, you can go write about somebody else doing something else in another scene somewhere else. You're not stuck on the very last word you wrote. If you're writing a novel beginning to end in a straight line, apparently like most people are doing, if you get to a point where you don't know what your character is going to say next or what they're going to do next or what the next scene should be, you're stuck at that point. Whereas if you apply this quote-unquote method, now you have like 7 chapters on the go and 3 different tasks to do within each of those chapters. So depending on your mood, your energy level, your creative ninja powers that day, you can pick which chapter you want to write, which set of characters you want to write, whether or not you want to write dialogue or just wrylies or both, or if you just want to write descriptive paragraphs today because that's what you're feeling. You have all of these options instead of just being stuck at the last word you wrote. And so then you're always writing. It's always moving towards being complete. And then finally, in the editing process, then you sit down and you piss around about doing it right. You get the spelling right. You make sure your punctuation's right. You make sure the chapters are in order, etc., etc. That's, that's kind of like the schoolwork of it. But to get the creative side of it just down, it makes sense to me to chop it down into these basically 4 steps. Write dialogue first, wryly second, establishing and reestablishing paragraphs third, and then lastly, don't write it all in order. And really, that's, I think, what's making it so that I can write these things so quickly and that they actually get finished. And I don't just get stuck on one word on one page and you never move forward ever again, because that's sad. Anyways, thank you for listening to me babble. I'm sorry I couldn't keep it under 10 minutes. I really try, but I just am a babbling brook sometimes. But I thank you, and I hope if you give this a shot, I hope it works for you, or maybe you make your own version of it and apply it to yourself. I don't really care one way or another, just as long as you finish that novel and get it out there for people to read, because that's what this is about. Okay, now I'm going to shut up, and hopefully I'll see you again. Okay, bye.